Using this new operating system called Backbox, and instead of Kali, and the screen recorder doesn't work very well. So I'm going to do this with my phone. Now, this is how the method works. The first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to open up, if I can get this to focus correctly, we're going to open up two different types of servers. We're going to use a Apache server. And also a SQL server. Alright, now that we have those both open, we're going to go ahead and join the Tor network here. And just go ahead and just move this over to here, and we're going to go to IP leak. This will just show what proxy that we're coming out of, or the number or the IP of the proxy that we're coming out of. I have the scripting disabled, which is about anybody who has Tor, what they're going to use. And as you can see, this shows this is my IP. We're going to go ahead just for right this second and actually enable that and reload this, just so we can get the full gist of it, like so. So it says that we're coming out of the Netherlands, which we are not. Up here won't actually detect anything because we are going through Tor. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here with the same computer, but with the traffic that is not being routed through the Tor network. So again, we're going to use IP leak. And as you can see, this will show that I am in the United States using Comcast, and this right here actually is my actual IP address. It is not what the Tor network says that my IP address is. You can see this right here actually gives the full amount of information. So this is actually the same computer, however, some of the traffic's being routed through and some of it's not, and that's actually the vulnerability that we're going to exploit through the browser. So basically what we're going to do next is go ahead and open up a handler that will be taken care of through the SQL server. In this case, I'm just going to use Metasploit, or well, Armitage actually is a graphical user interface for Metasploit. I just use for these kind of demonstrations because it is a lot better for people to see what's going on than inside of the command, inside of a terminal. So as this loads here, let me explain a little bit more what's going on. It's very simple, actually. I have a malicious PHP code that I've written, that I actually wrote in order to establish a shell onto remote hosts, but instead I'm using a part of that code to get the IP number from somebody who's using Tor. So as long as the browser will read the malicious PHP code, it'll give me their IP address. So for example, if I were to put the code into a picture, I can actually make it so the browser will see the picture, but it will actually differentiate between the code of the picture and the PHP code and read them both separate, reading the PHP code as the PHP code and still initiating the process. Or you can get somebody to click on a link. Basically, you use your imagination on how to get the victim to view the code through the browser. There's a million different ways. However, this right here will actually show the very first proxy that the victim is going through, rather than the actual ISP that the victim is using, and that's where I've ended here. Of course, it'd be fairly simple to get that to circumvent the first proxy that they go through. You can actually probably very easily make it to where they're going to use the SOC 5 instead of the SOC 4, just for the start rerouting the traffic, or into a HTTP, or to a SQL, or to a or SSL, or to a proxy that you actually have control over, that you're logging. So now that we set it up our listener, what we're going to do here is basically, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I don't have a victim on the line, so I'm going to act as if the victim, and we're just going to just throw in a call out to that PHP code, and I'll show you exactly what happens here. So right here, this is the Tor browser. We're going to go ahead and remember that's the IP address, but this will not be the IP address that calls back to me. Now the scripting is turned off, so that's for JavaScripts, so it doesn't really matter. because this is a PHP code. And as you can see right here, we have actually already had the connection through them, and you'll see them right up here in the computer that's highlighted in red right here. This is actually this Tor coming through now. If you'll notice though that the IP address is 171 yada yada, where the IP address right here is 37. Now the reason that that's happening is because this right here is the last IP address of the last proxy in the chain, where this right here is the very first one. Again, where I'm having trouble is circumventing the normal traffic to use a sock that the normal traffic on their computer is using already, and not going through the Tor network. So that way, when the victim views the PHP code in their browser, it's going to circumvent or maybe go through a proxy that I control, or however, and it's going to end up here with their actual IP address, and then with people like with law enforcement and stuff like that will then be able to subpoena the ISP and actually get the location of the trafficker themselves. So that's where I'm actually at a loss. So just as a little thing here, let's back it up so you can kind of see a little bit of everything that's going on. And I'll go ahead and I'll stop this from running, and you'll notice this right here will actually just immediately disconnect. So I'll stop that, and that right there actually just disconnected. As you can see, that they are actually completely one and the same. So we'll go ahead and we'll start it back up again. I'll just basically click right there. And as soon as I click on it, it'll start to, oops, crap. It would be better if I actually had the code in there. And then this right here will then, bam, and then boom, we've initiated another right there. So, you know, I originally invented a method very similar to this in order to establish shells on remote systems, and then upload payloads and so on and so forth, and do a staggering payload. However, I had the grand idea that, hey, since I'm able to get the IP number of the actual victim, let's go ahead and use this and try to use it on Tor to actually get the IP numbers of the people who are using it. So that's the method. I'm just not showing the code, but that definitely does work, and it does, as you can see, it actually does stay connected the entire time. So, or at least for the 15 minutes until the proxy changes. So. Again, this right here is the first proxy within the chain, and like as an IP leak is just getting the second proxy that's in the chain. But of course, let's see here, it is definitely not my original IP, nor the IP of the original IP here of the last proxy being used. It's actually the first proxy, so it should actually be simple to circumvent, but just haven't been able to figure out the exact method on how to go about it. So that's my video, that's my proof.